back absentee voting. We're going to have it for people who need it. If you have an age or health condition where you're vulnerable and you feel that you need to vote at home and not venture out, we respect that. That's your subjective decision, and our law in Kentucky already allows for that. It actually has for decades. We've had absentee voting as a right in our state constitution since 1945, 75 years. That's why our clerks know how to do this. They've been doing it for decades. So we protect your right to do that. We make it easy by having govoteky.com for you to request your ballot. We verify your identity. We have a login to the driver's license database so we can check your photo ID. And then we let you track that ballot yourself 24/7 electronically on that website. If you want to find out if the clerk processed your ballot on the way out or on the way in, it's right there. You can track it the way you track a UPS package. That's transparency. And it's not just for you. It also helps me and Daniel Cameron and federal prosecutors and others on my team who look for election fraud spot any vulnerabilities or irregularities. So we're preserving this for people who need it. But at the same time, we're transitioning to a more normal election where most voters, the vast majority of voters, will vote in person. Here's how we're effectuating that. Two big changes. Number one, we're going to have 3 weeks of early in-person voting. Instead of having absentee voting being the release valve for our election, it's going to be in-person early voting with a photo ID. If you're able to vote in person, please do that. Please take the strain off our county clerks, take the strain off our postal system, and go vote in person. It's never been so convenient. We're going to have 3 weeks of early in-person voting every weekday, all day, and Saturdays for the first time in Kentucky history. Saturday voting. No excuse, no appointment, just come forward. Now, if you want to vote on election day, you can do that too. We're going to have more in-person voting locations than we had for June. One change of this plan for November is, frankly, I think I delegated too much to the clerks. I let them make their own plans, and then they didn't need my sign-off on them. This time I've got veto authority. I'm going to veto any plan that's not adequate, that doesn't give you enough places to go vote. I've already approved several plans. Campbell County, it's a big county. They opened up every single precinct, every single one in Campbell County. I've got several counties that have done that. So when I hear from your clerk and others, I'm going to listen to what they have to say and be courteous and respectful, but I'm going to press them to have as many places to go vote as they possibly can. And here's how else we're helping. I opened up a portal at govoteky.com where you can apply to be a poll worker. We found 4,000 poll workers we didn't have through this mechanism. That's helped our clerks restore their precinct voting. There's a brewery just a block from here called Dreaming Creek. They entered into a partnership with my office. They're putting logos on their beer cans that prompt people to volunteer to be poll workers and direct them to our website. I'm going to go there and thank them with some business after I'm done with this. So we're thinking creatively about how we can find younger people, how we can find more locations, and how we can enable our clerks to have a successful election. One last point, and I'll take anything you have for me. So the biggest complaint I got is we want to vote in person. We want locations to do that. The second biggest complaint we got was we don't want to wait a week and find out who the president is. We don't want to wait a week and find out who won the Senate and everything else. I don't either. I want to be done with this. I want to move on. So every state that's voted in this pandemic has done exactly what we did, which is take at least a week to count all these ballots. On a regular election night in Kentucky, when 98% of voters vote in person on one day, you push a button and the machine gives you a total, and that's your results. That's why we're always the first state to report our votes for president. We're always first on the board with Donald Trump or Mitt Romney or John McCain or George Bush because we count the fastest, because that's how we vote. I still think that we're going to be number one. We're going to be the first state to put our votes up there for Donald Trump, I believe. And here's why. Number one, we're going to push most of our voters to vote in person and not by absentee ballot. When they mail it back or put it in a drop box. And number two, we're requiring the clerks to count every vote they've received as of 6 p.m. election night and report it to my office. That was in the executive order that I did. And so we're not going to have every vote. We're going to have, I think, probably 75 or 80% of the voting. Usually we have about 95% on election night. It's not going to be all the results. We're going to have to wait a day or two to count some ballots. But we're going to be way ahead of the rest of the country. In New York, they voted the same day we did for the primary, June 23rd. They just finished their vote counting a couple of weeks ago. And they lost tens of thousands of ballots just in New York by itself. We've done a better job than they have. You may have to wait for a month to find out who won Pennsylvania. I hope not. I want to know if Donald Trump's going to be president again. But I tell you what, it won't be on us. We're going to know who our senator is, our state reps and everybody else pretty fast. I'd say certainly within a few days, which is the deadline to certify the totals. So I'm very proud of what we've done. We've had a crazy year to be a rookie. I'm glad that I came in with election experience and I'm able to utilize that, not just for Kentucky, but to make us a model across the rest of the country for how they can do better for themselves. So I'm very proud and very grateful for this opportunity. And if you have any feedback or any questions, I'd love to hear it. Thank you all so much.
I'm Jackie Bowling from Korea, a poll worker for many years. I'm not going to tell you my age. Are you familiar with the Transition Integrity Project?
I'm not.
It's worth researching. It was a bipartisan group of people. Trey Grayson was one of the people on it. And they established different scenarios, like if Biden should win, or if there was a narrow voting between the two, or if Trump. And they also talked about the difference in an absentee ballot and a mail-in ballot, which people get confused and they think that's the same thing, and it isn't. The findings of that committee was that the absentee ballots were verifiable. The mail-in ballots, 100% were, they want to say, ripe for fraud.
Yeah, can I speak to that? It's a really
Sure.
good point. I neglected. So we don't have mail-in voting in Kentucky. Only 6 states have that. California, Oregon, Washington, kind of the usual suspects. Here's the difference, huge difference. And this is why President Trump has endorsed what we're doing. It said that states to do absentee voting the way that we do it are the gold standard. And that's how the president himself votes, and the vice president, and my former client. So in a vote-by-mail state, they do 2 things that I find pretty dubious. Number 1, they register a voter without that voter's prior consent or knowledge. They get your name from a government database. If you're on welfare or whatever it is, they say, he'd be a good voter, she'd be a good voter. Let's put that person on the rolls. Well, guess what? You don't have to be a U.S. citizen to be in a government database. We've got lots of people on the West Coast who are not legal immigrants, who are on Medicaid and other government programs. That's a terrible idea. We don't do that here. We make you register proactively. Number 2, in those states, they don't require you to apply for a ballot and prove your identity. They just mail it out to the whole phone. If your name's in that database, you get a ballot in the mail. You didn't ask for. So you know that everyone on your street's going to get a ballot on Friday, and all I have to do is go grab all the ballots. It's a terrible idea.
Well, some people called me about the ballots, and I reminded